Tell them the whole place has gone toxic.
Are you kidding? Then they won't come here. The rescue team will turn back.
Yeah, I know.
All right. Welcome to Perfect Organism, the Alien Saga podcast / videocast. It's our second video. Welcome, everybody. And we are here to discuss a pretty hot topic in our fandom, the Alien fandom, but also general fandom. And there's a lot going on, and we felt like it was time to address a topic that's really divisive and something that's happening, and that's really fandom toxicity. And it's not just found in the Alien series or the Alien fandom. It's everywhere. It's explosive. It's all over. It's like an infection right now, and it's always sort of been there. But now it's at fever pitch, and we feel like it's time to address it. So that's what we're here to do.
Totally. You could even say it's a hot toxic. I'm a dad. I'm sorry, but it really is. It's something we're all dealing with on so many different fronts right now. Before we get into it, I just want to point out for people. So this is the first time we're really trying a video episode, proper. And the setup was so funny because we're both like running around. I'm like checking my light. We're like really being so careful, trying to get the microphone in the frame properly. And it's so funny the different considerations that come into play when you're doing a video episode versus an audio episode. So this is all to say, we haven't done this before, but we're going to try to make it as professional as it can be, and hopefully do more of this in the future. But yeah, I think this is really worth addressing as an issue. For those of you who might have missed on previous episodes when we've talked about it, or maybe to kind of give more of the background, Jamie and I met basically as a result of toxic fandom. I knew Jamie from alien message boards, prior to the formation of Building Better Worlds and my being on this podcast, and we'd interacted a little bit. But I reached out to him for the first time specifically because I felt like there was a lot of sort of one-sided toxicity around some of the prequel films going on. Not just from Jamie, I'm not putting this on you, but from a lot of voices within fandom. And I was trying to express the fact that I think that there were other voices that perhaps if they were heard might help to make the conversation a little more nuanced and a little bit more fair to different parts of fandom. So But that was coming out of a moment where I was having a ton of fights with people, daily about various things, especially because of Covenant. And in the context of this conversation that we're going to have today, we're going to talk about many things other than Covenant, although I'm sure that will come up. But before we really get into it, I just want to just put out there that part of why I am now, we're like brothers. Part of why we have this relationship is because it was forged in the fire of working through genuine toxicity, not towards each other, but towards this fandom that we love more than any other one, and I feel like it was a really interesting way to be introduced.
Absolutely. And a great lesson that I've learned and something that we've discussed is ownership. A lot of us feel like because we love certain things, we feel like we own it in our own way. Not that we own the property, but that we have an emotional stake in Alien Covenant or Alien 3 like I love and you love too. And when we hear criticism, we take it personally, as opposed to, no, it's not personal. They don't, this isn't about you. They just don't like it or they have a different opinion. And what's happening that I'm seeing is people are taking these personal. They're taking, I didn't like this Star Wars movie and I didn't like this character and I'm angry and I'm mad and I'm going to let everyone know. As opposed to, hey, it didn't resonate with me. I'm moving on, and this is why. And I thought it could be better, but we're all here together. And I really feel like fandom has for me, fandom has been an oasis. It's been a place for me to come and find unity and family, which I really have found, and to engage with the community, to share, to enrich the community. And it's not a place that I felt like I'm here to get what I can get, or I'm here to badger my point home. But I've fallen into that before, absolutely.
As have I, as you know better than anybody. I have been very pig-headed with my opinions in the past and had a lot of fights with people that I regret because I feel like I wasn't actually listening to where they were coming from. So part of what we want to talk about today, I think, is where we are coming from and where some of this animosity or some of this hypersensitivity might be coming from, and how there are valid underpinnings for it. So like the disease is valid. There is hurt, and there is a sense of disenfranchisement in a lot of fans. But what's happening is the symptoms are the problem, right? It's what you do with that sense of disenfranchisement or what you do with that sense of displacement that I think can determine things. I guess before we get into the bulk of the episode, I wanted to share some sort of some toxic fandom examples that I've come across through the years that I feel like we don't really talk about. Because when you and I talk about this, as we have on the show before, we talk a lot about obviously Alien, but also about Star Wars, because that's a really visible one, and it's one we're going to unpack today. But you remember the Rick and Morty Szechuan sauce thing?
Yes.
Do you remember this?
Yeah, not fully,
yeah,
but I do remember.
What the hell was that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like it was this McDonald's promotion with Szechuan sauce for an animated cartoon, which is a really nice cartoon. Like I don't have anything against Rick and Morty, but the degree of actual physical violence that erupted by people like pushing each other out of McDonald's to get this like condiment, I was like, what? It was an early indicator for me that something was sort of off in fandoms in general. So that was one that I feel like really stuck out. Are there any, when you think back into toxic fandom, like are there any things that were kind of like warning signs for you, or things that before the Star Wars eruption or the Covenant eruption you saw coming?
Well, I have to actually reference again Star Wars, and these were the prequels. And this is George Lucas saying, why would I make more movies when all I am is beat up for what the films that I've made? Or Natalie Portman not wanting anything to do with Star Wars because she felt like she couldn't get work because people criticized her so heavily for her acting. Jake Lloyd having a meltdown, burning all of his Star Wars toys as a child because he was ridiculed for... And I think people have a short memory. What's going on right now, and of course I know we're going to talk about Covenant and we're going to talk about what happened there, but certainly with Rosemary... Wait, her name's not Rose. What's her name? Her first name? Marie Tran. What's her first name?
Who are you talking about?
Rose from Star Wars.
Kelly Marie Tran.
Kelly Marie Tran. I call her Rosemary Tran.
Yeah, right.
But it's Kelly. What's happening with her right now really has been a catalyst for even worse things. And a lot of things that's happening with her is racially motivated. It's gender motivated. It's people don't understand something, so they ridicule it, which is, I think, something that we need to address. Because you don't understand something, because maybe you don't like something or you don't relate to it, it doesn't mean it's bad. And it doesn't mean it's a threat to you. It just means that there's not a connection. It means that you don't you don't relate to it as much, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think we're in this place where I don't like it, and I'm going to want to make sure everyone knows that I don't like it, and you shouldn't like it either, and you're stupid for liking it. And to be honest with you, I have fallen into that. Maybe not the you're stupid for liking it, but like maybe I'm a little smarter than you. Yeah, you like this. So, and that's come out in my attitude sometimes, and I'm not and part of that is I don't understand why someone doesn't see something that I think is maybe ridiculous, why they don't see it as ridiculous too. I'm like, how do you not see that chest burster's ridiculous? But they really don't, and that's okay. And I can walk away from that and say, you know what, that doesn't make them lesser than or less fans or whatever, because I don't understand why they like something that I find is ridiculous. And it doesn't mean...
Right, because...
Go ahead.
Well, because what's at the heart of that is that we're seeing different things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that gets lost in the conversation a lot, is that we're looking at the same picture and taking different things away from it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's what's interesting in life is that we assume people are seeing the things that we're seeing in the same way. Mm-hmm. Like we take for granted, and I'm not going to go into the mind-body problem, but we take it for granted, for example, that what I see as red, you see as red, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. Like there are things that are easy to assume that everybody's seeing the same way. But when one person sees, one film, and another person sees the one film, and even though they have very similar backgrounds and similar aptitudes and similar proclivities and similar interests, they're looking at the same thing and taking something very different from it. Now, I do think there's a valid argument in there that there is something to be said for ambivalence and for art deliberately sort of being a Rorschach test a little bit, that when you look at it, you can take something very personal away from it. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that Covenant is a perfect Rorschach test, but I'm saying that when I watch Covenant, I am so focused on the things that come across as brilliant to me, that's ridiculous. might not register as ridiculous to me because I'm not concentrating on that, because I'm looking at other things that you might also be missing because you're fixated on the ridiculousness in your mind of other things that have gone by. And I feel like we can flip that around, and there are plenty of things that you like that I think are ridiculous as well. And I think that's like kind of the point with films, is that we all have different opinions about them. But what's weird is that in the digital era, in like the Internet 2.0 era, where everybody has a platform, and everybody has the ability to aggregate around things, it becomes so easy and so quick to find people with a likewise opinion, and then to assume that that means that you're validated, or to assume that it means that your viewpoint is universally relevant, which is not always the case.
One thing that I've discovered, again, and really this is born out of my relationship with you, really, I think I have always been big on fandom, but my viewpoint with fandom has for a long time been, yeah, I'm excited about this, but what can I get out of it? As opposed to what can I bring to it? And that sounds kind of cheesy, it sounds kind of PC, but I really think the answer, and there's a lot going on in the world today. There is a lot of division going on in the world today. And part of my concern about what's happening in fandom is that it's my last oasis. I don't have a physical community out here where I live. I don't really have any friends out here, so my online community is the fan community. And when that has gone toxic, what else is there? Like, there's toxicity in politics, and almost in every kind of area of life, there's so much going on. Like, if fandom is exploding, what else? You know, and I feel like we have the power as fans to make this a really great place, and to really, I think, and this, again, this might sound cheesy, but the answer really is unity. And that's something that I've discovered. And really, my bond with you came through the idea that we can be different and we can be similar. We are similar people. We are very similar people, even though we have some differing viewpoints on some fundamental things. You know, most of the films you and I love, except for a couple. I don't like Godzilla. I don't like... I mean, even... The odd thing is, even though my love, or my... how I look at Alien Covenant is coming around. Like, I saw a clip from something the other day, and I'm like, man, I gotta watch that movie. And I'm like, whoa. And it's not because I'm changing my mind. I think when you let yourself be open to a different viewpoint, when you say, you know what, I'm gonna love my friends and my fans more than I love my opinion on what they believe. I'm gonna love the fans and who I'm related, or who I relate to in fandom, more than I love my opinion on this film. That's the thing that I think is important. How important is your opinion? Is your opinion so important that we're going to drive off these stars who have put their lives into making these films for us? How important is your opinion? Is your opinion so important that it's going to toxify everything? Is that a word? Toxify? I think it's a word.
Yeah.
And you know, I was at that place with Covenant, and we've discussed this on episodes before, where I really was kind of woken up to this level of toxicity that I was bringing into fandom, where yes, I had some valid concerns, and there were things I had valid issues with in that film, but I was letting my distaste and disdain for those things pull everything down, where it was like, I don't like this, I don't like that, and it's stupid. And someone would say, well, I loved Covenant. Well, I thought that was stupid. And that's something I'm training myself on too. Like, I'll scroll down and maybe I'll see something someone have posted on social media, and I'll like start writing a contrary opinion. And I'm thinking, why do I need to write a contrary opinion? Do I
do that too.
You know,
I like read half of it and I'm like, stop.
Me too.
Like, this is not going to accomplish anything.
Yeah.
Like, just let them have this. Yeah.
And the question is, how are our actions bringing us together? And again, I know that sounds very love and peace and hippie and whatever, but I really think
that's what we need. You know, there's nothing wrong with
that's
love
like
and peace.
The revolution. Unity is the revolution, and unity doesn't mean we agree on everything. Unity doesn't mean that we love all the same things. Unity means your opinion can exist with mine, and we can still go arm in arm to the movie theater, or arm in arm and sit down and discuss a film that we might disagree on, and get up from that conversation or get up from that film and say, you know what, I don't agree, but I love you, man. Have a great night, or or see you later, Sarah, or whoever, or our brothers and sisters,
or just that I respect you. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like I don't see it the way that you see it, but I validate the way that you see it because of who you are and what you're looking for.
Absolutely.
And that's totally valid, and I'm not going to try to take it away from you. Like my example with this is Prometheus, because when I saw Prometheus, I was a little bit heartbroken. I kind of actually from Alien fandom for a while because I just wasn't really. I was sort of like a little bit upset with the direction the franchise was going in. I wasn't hating on it online, but I kind of just retreated for a while. So I know what that hurt is like, But I also know, and I've told you this, and I tell all the other people affiliated with the podcast this, that like an actual goal of mine is to love Prometheus. Like I want to love Prometheus, and I ask people what they like about it. I look for those things. I'm trying to rewatch it as much as I can, but it hurts to rewatch it.
Yeah.
Just like I know for you, watching Covenant is a painful experience sometimes because there are things in it that are anathema to what you hold sacred. And for me, when I watch Prometheus, there are things in it that really actually hurt me physically. Like I feel really, really pained by it, but I'm trying to fight through it because I want to see in it what people that I respect see in it, and because I really think that like that is sort of the goal of fandom. Like these movies exist, like they're already out there. They're not going to retract these movies, so you can either complain about it or you can try to find the good in it so that it won't be physically painful for you for the rest of your life. Right? And then in the case of Requiem, for example, just briefly, like AVP Requiem is something that I hate so deeply that I actually don't care about getting to a better place with it. Like I just think it's an invalid work, and that particular viewpoint is echoed by basically everybody that I interact with. So that's one where I'm like, you know what? If somebody told me they loved Requiem, I would say like, I'm so glad you like Requiem. That's awesome. I'm glad there's somebody who likes it, but I don't actually want to talk about it because I don't have the interest in it. But like, go for it. I'm not going to take that away from you. Right? So there are things like that too. I'm not saying that we have to love everything, but the things that we hate, I think it's important to question if there's room for growth there, and if there's not, to be like, okay, I'm just going to forget about that. I'm not going to. This is not my life. This is this work of art that I'm appreciating, and I can separate myself enough to realize that this is not necessarily governing my own existence.
And I think what should be noted too is that well, first of all, I don't want people to think that we are on here as like, okay, we want to teach everybody something. We're just speaking from our heart, and we're speaking from from an experience of seeing some intense negativity happening that's affecting everything and everyone. And some of that, I think, comes from a couple of things. Number one, the way movies are made are very different now. The way movies are made, like, for instance, let's talk about Star Wars for a minute, but also a lot of other films or franchises. Star Wars is made by a system. Star Wars is made by a corporation. There are people in place to kind of watch over it, like Kathleen Kennedy, like Dave Filoni, who did The Rebels, which was for, I think, the Cartoon Network. There's different kind of...
No, it was for Disney XD, I think.
Oh, that's right. You're right. That was, Cartoon Network was before. That was Clone Wars.
Which is a fucking great channel. I just want to say.
Totally.
like we put it on for the boys, but I'm like they're asleep and I'm still like watching. They got some great cartoons on the channel. So
totally. And so,
big up Disney. You can sponsor us.
I think that there's something. I think that there's something that has to be really validated with people who, because what we're also at is we're at a place where corporations have taken over these franchises that we love, and they're moving them in a different direction. And for some, they're like, okay, we're cool with it. For others, we're like, this isn't the Star Wars I remember. This isn't the Alien that I remember. I'll talk about my love for the Dark Crystal. The Dark Crystal was born out of Jim Henson's deep love and desire to tell a very interesting, very different, very familiar story. And he and Frank Oz, who was his co-director on The Dark Crystal, which is my all-time favorite film. All that stuff is Dark Crystal stuff behind you, except for the Ghost in the Shell poster. And he made this incredible film that's almost like Blade Runner, where it's very underappreciated. It's got a kind of a cult following. Jim Henson passed away in 1990, and his adult children took over the Henson Company, and they've been running it. And now we're at a place where Netflix, partnered with the Henson Company, is doing a Dark Crystal series. None of the original people who worked on that on the film is working on the new series, except for Brian Froud, the conceptual designer, and I think his son, and Wendy Froud, who it was like a puppet fashioner, a builder to some degree. I won't go on about this too long, but what I'm trying to say is that there's a corporate system in place making this series for Netflix. It's not the vision of one man anymore. It's the vision of several people. The way movies are made these days are through committees, through many, many different things, and it's changing fundamentally how these movies feel. They're not from the mind of George Lucas. They're not from the mind of, or maybe inspired by Joseph Campbell or a Steven Spielberg from 1970. They're very, very different films. A lot of them are very successful. Some of them not, but there's a clear shift in the direction they're going. Some of them feel different. And I feel like people are trying to kind of clamor and say, what's happening? Something's happening. What's happening with this product that I love? I mean, even for me and where I am and with the Alien series, I won't watch Prometheus with the sound on. I can't take the dialogue. I think it's ridiculous. I mean, the dialogue is laughable. There's some great moments in there, though. At the same time, I think that Prometheus is a more beautiful film than Covenant. And I've said this before, but I feel like Covenant has better ideas and better acting and some better dialogue in some parts than Prometheus. But in large part, my struggle has been connecting with two Alien films, and I'm like, where's the series that I love? What is this? What am I watching? And I have to kind of come to terms with that. And it doesn't mean what I see is bad or good. It just is what it is. But you can see Covenant and see something very different. So I think that I'm saying all this to say there is a valid argument or a valid discussion. Where are these films going? Who are they made by? And are they changing? And do we have to go with that change? But at the same time, give everyone a space to be able to talk about that and hear them without saying, well, fuck you, I love this movie, and I don't know what's your problem. Or, I can't believe you love that piece of garbage. What's your problem? You're stupid. And that's where we're at right now. And I think unity is really what's going to save us. Unity is what this is about. Unity is what makes fandom amazing. Engagement, I was talking about, and I'll acquiesce to you in a minute, but I was thinking about fandom, and I was thinking about people like Aaron Percival, who is he's essentially the face of AVP Galaxy, Alien versus Predator Galaxy.net. There's a Facebook page. They do have their podcast shows once every couple of months or whatever. Really amazing guy. I'm doing Perfect.
Good friend of ours.
Oh yeah, I'm doing Perfect Organism in part because of who he is and what he has been doing. I did a lot of research and talking with him before I started the podcast. But what I love about Aaron is that Aaron isn't out for himself. Aaron engages other groups and pages. He'll go in and he'll post and he'll talk and he'll say, this is what I'm doing. I just got this model kit. This is a great picture. This is what's happening here. And at Perfect Organism, we don't talk too much about Predator because that's not our thing. But we realize and support and uphold and respect what Aaron has done. And to me, that's what makes fandom special, that you're not just in this for yourself. You're not just in this for your own opinion and what you love. You're here to kind of validate everyone. Even people you disagree with, or maybe they love Alien Resurrection and you don't, or I don't, or whatever. And for me, that's why I am here. That's why I feel like you and I are doing Perfect Organism, to share our love with other people, or to offer a discussion about something maybe people wouldn't think about.
So I think the challenge in fandom is that we have to do something that basically, as you said earlier, no other element of society is successful at right now, which is having different opinions but being really humane about it and really accepting and respectful about it. I feel like there may have been a time in politics when it was like that. It's certainly not like that now. There may have been a time in world affairs where it was like that. It's obviously not like that anymore. We've all gone through this thing especially since 2016, and not only in the U.S., but as a result of events, especially in the United Kingdom and elsewhere. We've gone through this thing where everybody knows somebody who they can't really talk to anymore, right? Everybody has had that moment where they've had to defriend somebody because it's been so toxified, as you said, that you can't even have a real conversation anymore. That you know that if you say anything that's even slightly political, that it will just be leapt upon. And I mean, members of my own family, not at least my wife's side of the family, who I have had to talk to and been like, you can't keep attacking me on every post that I do. Like, this is getting seriously like awkward, you know? I think we've all had moments like that. And that is not to say that I didn't necessarily deserve to be called out for things, but I feel like the reality is that now everything we do, it takes place in a very contentious environment, and an environment where people are not listening the way that we once were. And I say we, meaning me. I'm not listening the way that I used to listen. When I see a bumper sticker on a car affiliated with a certain political figure that I really genuinely hate, I get very angry about it, and I feel this weird impulse to like slash their tires, which I won't do. But I assume all these things about this person just because they support something that I feel is antithetical to what I think is humanity. You know, one second. If somebody has a certain opinion that is different from mine, that hits me in a certain way, I assume so many things about that person, and I just, like you said, I assume that they must be an idiot. You know, and not only an idiot, but a bellicose idiot. Like somebody that I want nothing to do with in my life. And part of my journey these last couple of years has really been stopping doing that, and not just quieting that impulse, but being aware of it and analyzing it and being like, I am making assumptions about this person that are not fair to them. So a quick example is when they rebooted Ghostbusters, there was like this explosion of toxicity, right, over the all-female casting over it. Especially Leslie Jones. Remember, she had to shut down her Twitter account, and there was all of this very, very racial stuff coming out, and it was sort of early on the scale of these toxic explosions that we've been talking about. This is like, I guess, 3 years ago now. But it was so public and so visible and so terrible, you know? And so when that happened, I really assumed that the people who were doing that were basically regressive, ultra conservative, you know, people who were doing it because they were women, right? Or because she was black. And I was assuming that about them. I'm sure that there were some people who were doing it because of that. But what I think was actually going on for a lot of people is that they felt like something that was important to them from their childhood was being forcibly renovated to fit a PC world culture when it didn't need to be, because it was doing a disservice to actual feminism, in their opinion, because it was forcing it. And so there are things that I found myself doing that are so fucked up. Like, for example, I was taking screenshots of people who didn't like Covenant of things that they were saying, diatribes that they were having online, and I was like showing it to people that I was, you know, in cahoots with as like evidence that people who didn't like Covenant were not necessarily dumber, but less, you know, less educated. I'll be totally honest. And I think that that's super fucked up. And that's something that I'm like really deeply ashamed by. For one thing, because people who don't like Covenant, there's no correlation with education there. And even if there were, that's not something to fucking attack people for, but that's beside the point because there's not. But also because it was a complete moment of appealing to my lizard brain base instincts. And like you said, fandom is supposed to be a place where that doesn't happen. It's supposed to be a place where you can be as much of a fucking nerd as you want to be, with people who will really accept you for that, people who will really love you for that. And we are losing that. We're in danger of losing that in fandom right now.
One thing I wanted to address is when this is something that I've learned. This is a lesson that I've learned, and I remind myself of every day. When I see someone post an opinion that I don't agree with, I don't need to all the time say, well, I don't agree with, or I don't like it. And there's this contrarian spirit, and I've had it. I see it all over the internet. A posting of an opinion is not an attack on our own. It's just an opinion. And there's this thing that we'd like to do at work where we assume positive intent, and we create these groups in these spaces so that we can share our opinions and share our insights. Because what if you don't like this movie, but someone else loves it, and they say, hey, I like this movie because of this, this, and this, and you're like, wow, I never thought about that. That's the beauty of fandom. Or, hey, did you know that they made this movie doing this such and such thing on that such and such thing? I'd be like, oh my God, I never knew. Like, we just did an interview with Odd Studio and Creatures Inc. I think that's the name of the other studio. And again, I haven't been this huge fan of Covenant, but I'm learning things. Talking to those guys made me appreciate the film more. The hard work that they put into it, the work they put into the puppets and the practical effects that were seen in the film. And if I was going to shut down any, like if I was like, no, fuck that film, I hate it, I wouldn't have done that odd studio interview. I just wouldn't have cared.
Yeah.
And being available to differing opinions makes us better people. If we want to live in a world where everyone agrees with us, what fun is that? What fun is fandom where everyone agrees?
Right, but the thing is that we have to find the fun in that again, because I think that's what we're losing. Because like it's not like we've ever all agreed, right? Like people have since the first movie came out, we've all been arguing about shit. But we used to have genuine fun doing that, and now something has been turning where we're taking it in a different way. So actually, before we close this out, I thought it might be fun to sort of analyze our own psychological responses to this shit. So I was trying to think like why. When I get toxic, when I get mean, or when I get defensive, like what is actually going on in my head? Mm-hmm. And I really think it's because, and again, this is like a moment, we're being very honest on this episode because it's a difficult topic. I think it's because I'm afraid that that other people will jump onto a bandwagon that will then go too quickly for me to have any control over or input on, and that what I want to see happen will be more difficult to realize because there will be a buildup of negativity around these So like just fundamentally, I'm not like a prequel person necessarily. I really like Covenant. I don't like Prometheus, but I do think that it would be very useful to have that trilogy, which I think it should be, rounded out and link it up so that we don't always have this weird kind of aborted thing that just sort of happened and then we just skip ahead in time and all of a sudden 1979 happens. So that's where I'm coming from. And when I see people saying things against Covenant in a public way, especially if they're doing it in a really vitriolic way or if they're just doing it in a really intelligent way, I feel like I have to say something or else people will be swayed, which is stupid because that's not the way that this works, and we all know that. But being completely honest, in my head, when I see a comment like that, that's what I'm going through. So what about you? When you see somebody saying something, or going back specifically to Covenant, when you saw somebody saying something pro-Covenant back when we were more of a bifurcated fandom and we were more fighty about it, what were you thinking?
Well, part of me was thinking, do they not see that this is a shadow of Alien, that this is a pale shadow and compared to this film? Like, do they not see that the dialogue is nowhere near, that these characters are nowhere? And for me, it's like, it was this thing like, or are they settling? Oh, cool creatures. And that was like my disconnect, like, because my mind couldn't understand it, I rejected it. Like, maybe it's something deeper than that. Maybe they're seeing something in it that's affecting them personally. You know, there's something. Alien 3 affects me deeply personally. It's a deeply personal film for me. And some people just throw that, oh, fuck Alien 3. You know? Done. They killed Newt, they killed Hicks. Who gives a shit? And for me, when I hear stuff like that, it's like, oh, but it's Ripley. It's like her last journey. It's her last kind of grasp. She's lost everything. Can you not see that? Can you not see that she's lost everything? And so I want to have them understand that. So I get it. But I have that same type of reaction, or I had that same type of reaction with Covenant. And again, going back to that statement of just because someone's asserting their opinion is not assault on mine. Just because someone loves a film doesn't mean I have to love it. Or just because someone doesn't love a film that I love doesn't mean that film is bad. It just means that they don't like it. That's it. One point I wanted to make was the idea of ownership. And I think all of us in the Alien fandom and Star Wars and many of the films that we grew up with from the 80s, like The Goonies or Ghostbusters, there's this sense of ownership, like Neverending Story and all of those films and The Dark Crystal. We feel like because they're such an emotional part of us, when people criticize something about them or maybe a sequel or something that's been made, we take it personally. We feel like it's an attack on us because we have such an emotional connection. And I think that's part of it. people feel an emotional, it's an emotional attack on us, but it isn't, and it's.
But it feels like it. It does feel like that. And I know we've both been in situations where it's felt like that.
Well, and
that
I think
hurts,
sometimes
like, so fucking bad.
Yeah, and I think because sometimes people make it personal. Like, well, what the fuck's wrong with you? You're stupid. And I have to be honest. There are groups, and it has been in my groups and has been in other groups, where factions were set. We hate this. We love this. It's been in Marvel. It's been certainly in Star Wars. I hate The Last Jedi. I love The Last Jedi. I hate Solo or whatever. Like, there's this toxicity, these sides where because we don't like something means no one else should like it. Because we love something, if you don't love it, what's wrong with you? Again, pivoting back to there's nothing wrong with you if you don't like something. And really, it's being bigger people. It's coming to this place where, like, you know what, we can climb over this hill. This isn't the end all. Like, we're gonna close social media for the day and we're gonna go and maybe we'll watch a movie, or maybe we'll go to sleep, or we'll hang out with our spouse or our family, and we probably won't think, but then we'll get back on social media and look to see who's making comments about things that we love. And I get that it is personal, but we have to make it not personal. And that's, to me, that's been an important thing. And I think, really, again, to pivot back to my relationship with you, that's how we bonded, was that, hey, I understand. Oh, I understand. As opposed to...
And you were like the first person that I really listened to, I think, in a really honest way about not liking Covenant. I think talking to you, especially on episode 59, the first time I came on the show, it's an important moment, not just in my fandom, but in my actual life, Jamie, honestly, because it was one of the first times I had a little bit of a breakthrough, and I was like, you know what, you're not the shit, you don't know everything. This person has a valid opinion, and it is not your opinion, and you should listen to him and be very honest and open. And it's funny because you've not made me like Covenant any less, and if anything, talking about it has made me love it more. But I now have a more human understanding of people who had issues with it, and it's a more nuanced thing. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of a breakthrough for me personally, I think. I learned, it was a moment where I kind of learned to listen, Mm-hmm. I feel like if there is a way forward, it's what we're doing now.
Yeah.
It's having conversations like this out in the open, and it's being really clear that you can have differing opinions and you can still love each other and respect each other, and you can still learn from each other. And I think what's great about a podcast, or this live television presentation we have going right now, I think what's great about what we're doing is it's making that conversation open for other people, so they can hear people working through it.
Yeah.
They can hear us having differences of opinion, which is part of why on the previous, I guess 2 episodes ago now, about Covenant, we kept all of the kind of weird, angry stuff in there, especially for me, was because I think we thought it was important to do that, because we should show that things can get out of hand, or people can get really impassioned about stuff, and sort of the idea is that it's okay. It's okay to move past that it doesn't mean that you hate each other, Mm-hmm. So I just feel like that's really a really important thing.
I agree. And sort of in closing, I just wanted to mention this one thing. I remembered what I was going to say earlier. Box office is impacted by what people are saying online. Period. End of story. Solo did not do as well because there was grumbling online from The Last Jedi. There was a lot of negative sentiment for Star Wars in the air. I'm not a huge fan of Solo. I've seen it twice. The second time I enjoyed it more. And this isn't a conversation about what Solo is or isn't. But what I'm saying is, and also I would even say that Alien Covenant, the loud voice of, we don't like this movie is shit, or whatever, that loud voice affected box office. People start seeing that online. People see all those comments posted under the official Alien page. That will affect, and has affected, how much those films do. What we say affects the box office. And, again, with Solo and post Last Jedi, Star Wars brand has taken a hit. A lot of people didn't like The Last Jedi, and because of that, a lot of those general audience people, based off what they've seen on social media, didn't go to Solo in droves. And that movie essentially underperformed. And it was essentially a box office flop for a Star Wars film. I mean, I think it's the first Star Wars film in history not to make the money that it made in the first weekend or whatever.
Yeah, right. It didn't recoup its budget. Yeah.
Yeah. So our voices matter. Our voices really, really do matter. And I think if we want to see better films or more films, and I'm not saying everyone has to love it, so go and see it. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about what you don't like. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that our voices matter and what we say matters.
Right.
Our negativity or positivity matters. And I think that's something to be thinking about. And again, I apologize to anyone if it sounds like I'm preaching or we're preaching. That's not the intent. I just wanted to really address what's been affecting our fandom as Alien fans. I mean, we have groups devoted to, like, the Prequel Paradise, which is a great group, but it was created because they felt like they didn't have a voice anywhere else. They felt like they couldn't talk about the prequels in other groups because they were laughed at or stupefied or made a joke of or demeaned. And this was in things that I've done and other groups or in other people. And that's a sad place to be when people feel like I have to go somewhere else. But at the same time, I think this is both sides of the coin too. You can't criticize something and become that same thing too. You know what I mean? Like it's that works on both sides of people aren't stupid for not liking it and they're not stupid for liking it.
Right.
We have to be able to coexist.
There's this emergent paradox in what you're saying that I think is kind of at the heart of what's wrong with us all right now, which is that our voices do matter because they do. Mm-hmm. But that also means that it's riskier to try cinema that might be divisive, especially at a mass market level. And that's happening in a context, as you said in the beginning of the show, of fewer auteur-driven projects, right? Of fewer things that are really from the mind of Jim Henson kind of projects, right? So you have this system happening where fandom is being heard, and because of that, studios are saying, we don't want to take a risk on something that might be divergent from what is established or what people are expecting because they might not turn out to see it. And then because of that, they're not saying, go ahead and let's do another incredibly ambitious sci-fi feature that's why a movie like Brazil isn't going to happen right now. Like, we're not going to see like Terry Gilliam in the 80s movies happening in a wide release format like they used to be, because that's not the market we have now, and because it's so easy for scorn to be heaped on different things.
Yes.
Like Last Jedi, which you and I both love The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
We both know people who really don't. And I think what's interesting is that it was a movie that took chances. Like from the very beginning of the film, when he throws the lightsaber behind him, like that is a very distinct moment where they are saying, where Rian Johnson is saying, like, fuck canon, or not fuck canon, but fuck expectations. Like this is a new slate, this is a new era. And say what you will, I know you have issues with Kathleen Kennedy. I can understand those issues. I don't necessarily agree, but I get it. I think that to go in the face of fandom like that very overtly early on can strike people. It does something very specific. It strikes you right in the heart, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're on board with it, then you take it as a moment of bravery and you say, oh man, like, show me what you got, like, show me something new. And if you don't like it, you say, like, why are you hurting me? Why is this happening to me? Mm-hmm. Here's the last thing I want to say briefly, because I know this is something we both can relate to, is that all of these movies that are being made now that are these revisits of things from the 80s, basically, like these things that happened between like 1975 and 1992, all of these reboots that are just popping up constantly, including the Disney Star Wars film
Cobra Kai,
which in my mind, in my mind, they're all part of sort of a whole. Whether that be Predator, whether that be Alien, whether it be Star Wars, whether it be Ghostbusters, whether it be, I mean, you name it, like literally everything. The people that are attacking those movies belligerently on message boards and on Reddit and on forums and on Facebook and on Twitter, those people are not 60. Those people were not adults when those movies came out, right? Mm-hmm. Those people were children when those movies came out. If that. Mm-hmm. Star Wars came out 7 years before I was born. Mm-hmm. I was introduced to it as like an old movie that I was just obsessed with, and that I'm still obsessed with. To me, there's something in that loss of magic. And I know Mike, our co-host, said something to this effect as well. There's something about the fact that we will never be able to regain that again. Mm-hmm. Like, we will never be. So like when we're watching something like Alien Covenant, there's no chance that our reaction to it will be the same as the first time we saw Aliens, because we are older, we are semi-depressive adults living in a complicated world system, and knowing the ins and outs of the Hollywood studio system, and knowing the rigors of money and the invisible hand of the movie market, and knowing audience expectation and advertising budgets, and knowing all the shit about what works and what doesn't work. And you've been to film school and you know what scripts are good, and I've seen a billion movies and I know what I like and what I don't like. We're not 7 years old again, you know? We're not kids struck by the wonder of an impossibility made life on screen, of a new story with new characters and a new environment that we have no idea what to do with. We're adults who grew up with these things that we loved, and those things that we loved are being revisited by people who also grew up with those things that we loved. And because of that, there's a loss of ownership. No matter what you want to do, no matter if you love it or you hate it, there's a loss there. There's a loss of that sacrosanct internal experience of seeing magic for the first time. And that will never come back. And we can hunt for it and we can chase it, and it's just like a fucking drug. It will yield fewer and fewer returns, and it will eat away at us more and more the more it goes on. And I really feel like we have to be okay with that as fan communities. And if part of that means completely abandoning new films, then abandon those new films, you know, unite around that, and don't necessarily hype vitriol and anger, you know, on the studios for doing what they're doing, because it doesn't accomplish very much other than making them lose money. Like, find people who really love Alien Resurrection and talk with them about it, you know, double down on that. Like, find people who appreciate the things that you appreciate and enjoy that together, but don't necessarily try to rob the new experiences from people who might get a lot out of them, from young people watching it for the first time today, or from audiences who might be more predisposed to be okay with change. Realize that that fandom is a multivaried thing, that there are layers within fandom, there are strata, and that you can love this part of it and hate this part of it, and that's okay, because you're still part of fandom. You're still a real fan, quote unquote. You're still a valid person with a viewpoint, and there are other people inhabiting those various strata as well. It's a fucking rainbow. Find somebody in your color waveform and go for it, you know.
And really, I mean, probably in closing, I'm here to have a good time. I'm here to have fun. I'm here to kind of relish this wonderful Alien fandom that I belong to, the Star Wars fandom that I belong to, the Blade Runner fandom that you and I belong to, and we're kind of the center of it in some ways, at least on social media right now, in terms of the podcasts and the interviews that we've done. I've been thinking about this for a while. I'm here to build everyone up. I really am. Like, I'm here to find out what separates us, what unites us. What do we love? What do we love about this? Why are we here? Let's talk about why we are here. And we know you probably have negative opinions or differing opinions, and we can talk about those. But let's talk about what brings us together. Because, for instance, in Blade Runner, most of the fans loved 2049. There are some people who didn't. They don't want to talk about it. They don't think whatever. But our strength comes from our unity. Our strength comes from feeling like, hey, no, they've got my back. They've got my back. Yeah, they don't agree, but man, they're awesome. They're an awesome person, and they've contributed a lot, or they've engaged a lot, and they have a great perspective. And there are people that you've met, whether it's Dan from Shoulder of Orion, who we met, and we don't all agree on the same things. Or he's very different. He's similar to us, but he's different. He has different opinions. But we can celebrate that. We need to be in a place where we're celebrating different opinions, because we're
not gatekeeping. Because that's something else.
Yes,
it is that this gatekeeping emerges all the time, and I fucking hate it.
Yeah,
and that's something that I personally, and I think you too, speaking for you, will try to counteract as much as we can.
And I've
like if I hear somebody shooting somebody down for having an opinion and being like, oh, that means you're not a real fan, or like, oh, like just because you're 20 years old, like you can't really have a history with Star Wars. Like, fuck that.
Yeah.
That's gatekeeping, and that's not going to help anybody with anything.
And I have been guilty of that in the past, but now these days I've been seeing this certainly in the realm of Star Wars, where true fans do this, and I'm like, fuck that true fans business. There's no such thing as a true fan. Why are you a true fan? Because you love everything, and I'm not, because I have a more nuanced opinion? Says who? Who makes these rules? Let's do away with the rules. We can love what we love, we can not like what we not like, and we can still be all part of the same fandom. And I think some of this too, and this is kind of my last point, engage. engaging with fandom, engaging with people who don't agree with you, like echoing what you just said. And the best leaders of fandom that I've seen, the people who I respect the most, whether that's someone like Charles Lippincott, who was present for the first Star Wars, he worked on Alien, everyone, he's all these types of fans. He has very differing opinions, but he kind of allows everything, and he engages with everyone. That, to me, is a leader of fandom. Aaron Percival is a leader of fandom. He might not agree, but those are the people who are consistently engaging, and I feel like that's what's going to make it for us. That's what's going to do it for us, is to engage with people we don't believe or we don't agree with all the time. And that's the world I want to live in, and that's the world I want to help foster.
To be inclusive and to focus on love and respect, and to know that we're here because we love something, and that at the end of the day, that's what matters ultimately.
Totally. Well, thanks.
Love you, man. Love you guys for watching this. Seriously.
Thanks for watching, everybody. And
thanks, guys.
And we will be back with another video episode at some point soon. Thanks.